Okay, so yesterday I tried with great difficulty to stream some games on here at my phone, and the mic kept cutting off, so I don't know what the deal with that is. But whatever, now we'll do another Absolutist Philosophy episode. I've certainly made good use of this phone when it comes to streaming. Like, yeah, at first you might have thought it's silly, but like for just chatting purposes, that kind of thing, this works well. Or for even mobile games, which again could constitute a lot of the stuff I do anyway. Could be chess, could be, stuff like that. But it's a situation where my battery on my other phone is dead, so I can't even see exactly where I'm going. But let's see, how do I get here? Because now I've got so many things right now in the car that are all charging and interacting with each other. Like, if you think about you think about the fact that like the Starbat thing, the battery I have, the Starlink Mini, and then that's charging, and then that's running, and then the other thing's charging, and I have a battery, so I don't have enough ports at a certain point to do that. Like, use the cigarette lighter to charge one, use a standalone battery to charge another. Like, I just simply don't have enough to do it all at once. And my computer, if that's the one, I don't know what. This way, you need to go to a place for a long time, and these standalone batteries are actually annoying as hell. They take 12 hours to charge. The whatever it is, it's like these little battery banks. They last about a couple hours, on the Starlink, but they take forever to charge. So it's a situation where I basically imagine we just drive in a straight line like this. This would be like a comedy skit, and we end up in Canada. We just somehow, but they wouldn't let you do that, right? Like, every road to Canada must be blocked off by border stuff. But imagine there's a part that happens with states all the time. That's one of the things I like about actual state borders is you can go from one state to another and you might not even notice. It's just right. You might not even notice because whatever, there's no real borders or checkpoints between stuff like that per se. Or here's a good thing, as we see a school bus and all this kind of stuff, right? The way society is designed and the way that norms are defined is reaction to a contrivance state. So it's not designed to create the best result. It's not designed to have the highest standard in any area. Education, no, it's meant to be mass produced, mass scale, public education. It's meant to be, mass-produced food, right? Everything mass-produced suffers inequality for it, my old expression. So what it means is society and norms effectively created by contrivance and the influences you're reacting to and influenced by when you're younger. It's not designed to yield the best results, nor is it credible, right? It's about what can we do on the biggest mass scale that also has some productive quality to it, but it's not really the priority. It's not really what it's about, right? So it'll be seen as pretentious or snarky, if you actually have high standards, then right, a private school or a private shop or something, objectively that might be a higher standard, but it would be condemned because not everybody has access to it or not everybody is doing it. So, but be careful not to take pride in something just because a mass number of people do it. That doesn't validate it at all. And also be careful not to like we're just talking about a standard. It's okay if you don't have access to it, but then you trick yourself into pretending, oh no, this is the best thing. Let's pop out more kids and reinforce the process instead of maybe not preserving the stimuli acme in that way. Well, until you vouch for the state, or it's up to you, right? There's no standard that's ever being imposed here. You don't have to go to school at all. You can homeschool. You can live in the woods. Like there's no preconceived notion with this. This is objectivity. So, but the point being that don't vouch for the state when it's in a half-mast place, because you know what that means, and what it means is that it would apply to anything then. It's sort of arbitrary and interchangeable. And so, I don't know. Or like, here's the thing about like unqualified empirical authority. The idea that basically, like, oh, you could put up with anything and you feel gratified or tolerating and stuff, but like, oh, you can tolerate it and put up with it, or you feel gratified after the fact, like, oh, everything's resolved. But the absolutists would take an issue with that, like the fallacy of permission, I call it. Oh, they check your ID, they check your background, they check this, they check that. You have to justify yourself. You haven't done anything wrong, but you have to justify yourself. That would be a process that's rejected by the absolutists. Like, no, if I do something wrong, then come and get me, or do what you got to do. But how do you just do that? Like, okay, you have right, you're guilty until proven innocent. You have to justify yourself. You have to get permission, just to do something you shouldn't be able to do anyway, or just to. Sorry, that's the wrong phrasing. That's something that you can inherently do anyway. The shouldn't be a part of that, but right. But objectively, you're looking at that. So, what does that mean? Because you are in a position to, oh, look at this dude, man. Bro, it's like he's trying to, like deer in the headlights 2.0. Like, he's trying to stop. He's trying to make a scene. Like, dude. Like, I almost don't have sympathy in a way for that. I understand, like, we've encroached on animals' territory over the years, but if you're gonna automobile, this big-ass hunk of metal is coming towards you. I don't know how you can't have some survival instinct against that, right? Survival instinct of a deer in the headlights. Like, and they'll say, oh, some things don't move out of the way because now cars are so quiet, right? Like the non-gas powered cars especially. But still, like, it's a big object coming towards you fast. You would think there'd be some awareness of that. So, yeah, there's a few things, like, it's not about you, kind of, and it's like, that's the objective kind of basis that I was saying. Yeah, like, you can remove the need for something basic. Like, you don't need to ever wash your car because of the rain, or you don't need to ever do, like, any of the things we take for granted as necessary or desirable in society. A lot of them, first of all, are only required by it in the first place. Oh, you can just use the bathroom in the woods or anywhere. So, like, you're deferring and doing it for the benefit of society. You don't, on an individual basis, you don't really need to do it, right? And then this kind of cracked me up, this sign here, Korean Presbyterian Church. Like, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying, why do you need to specify that it's Korean? Like, okay, a religion is just a religion. Like, does it say any other, Chinese Presbyterian church or this or that. Like, I don't know, like the religion speaks for itself. It really doesn't matter whether it's, don't bring race into it. The ultimate dog whistle type moment. Like religion veiled in race, veiled in gender, veiled in something else. The logo for here seems like it's playing tic-tac-toe or some shit. Downtown Watertown, more like Snowtown, because it smells like fucking crazy here. But no, what was I saying before? I kind of lost my train of thought. Everything is mass produced, suffers inequality for it. So like, it's not done to be the highest quality. Basically, it's done to be. It's done to be serving a different purpose. And the purpose is the fact that smoker's choice, the best choice, is to not smoke at all. Wow. That's the tough choice. But no, I always find that interesting too, like a society that seems sure of itself, but then it needs to do all those things, right? It would need to drink or smoke or distract yourself or engage in escapism, polyfavoritism. It doesn't mean that that's bad. It means that indicates an imbalance, right? That's like, oh, well, you could have lived in World War II Germany if you distracted yourself and overcompensated, bred in circuses. You could have witnessed the fall of Rome. You could go along with China. Like, so under that curated lens, yes, you could deal with anything then if you have the right kind of structure around it. But right, that doesn't answer it. It is sort of like an archetype, similar kind of concept. Like, oh, this isn't the way reality is, people would say, but we just have to do this, and this. Then it seems like reality isn't that way. But the fact that you have to do those things acknowledges that reality is that way. That doesn't mean whether it should be or whether you shouldn't react. But there's a difference between making that as an empirical claim, like, you'll use it as framing to control the behavior of others. It's one thing, okay, you choose to do this or that not in reaction to the inherent nature or something, but it means something different when you are outwardly insisting on telling other people what to do. So again, everything mass-produced suffers inequality for it. That expression ties into a few things that I was saying, like, if you it's not done for the highest quality, so it's kind of like, it's not being snobby or snarky. It's not saying, oh, look, I have this zero-sum means, a better opportunity that you don't. It's not even saying that you have that opportunity at all. It's just holding a standard. Would you rather have a standard, or would you rather just insist upon what you're doing because you kind of have to do it, thereby reinforcing what is a subversive state, right? Would you rather have a standard and say, okay, we're settling for public school because we have to? I know this is cognitive dissonance inducing, hard for people to do, but like, we're settling for this, it's mass produced, maybe we won't preserve the stimuli acting so flippantly, because whenever you glorify or overcompensate and have like positivity towards the state, maybe what that means is you're reinforcing it. So it's like, oh, don't be negative, but it's not being negative. Be neutral, and don't place undue emphasis, and don't be positive about anything ever. Let it speak for itself, and then if it's negative, that'll speak on its own. The fact that you have to overcompensate for it means it's a flawed process, thereby you're reinforcing it. You might say, well, you kind of have to, or go along with it, but you don't have to. You don't have to perpetuate it. You didn't create it, nor do you have to perpetuate it. You might go along with it, but right, you don't have to have children, thereby you don't perpetuate it, and you don't have to you didn't create it, so you're not responsible for it that way either. You could say, well, it created you, or you kind of benefited from it, but that's kind of arbitrary, because on the flip side, it controls everything you do. You're constantly inhibited by it. This kind of non-consensual social contract, oh, society did so much for you, or you need it, but it also took everything from you. like you monopoly over nature itself. You can't be free. You can't go out. You can't, do anything. You have to do everything through it, defer to it, right? So you're doing a lot of concessions to it, and that goes along with the concept of like zero-sum means is seen as an absolute goal, but it's like, what is a zero-sum means for that? Assume you had all the money in the world, right? But it's like false meaning in means is one concept. And then another thing is the fact that it's like objective observation, just for the sake of objective observation, because that's actually reality, and that would be the natural state. Like, you don't need a reason, and there's no incentive or anything that would discredit it, right? It's something more than that. So when you look at like social contrivance, even like, oh, somebody lacks the ability to do it, but it's like maybe like somebody lacks the ability to socially contrive or reinforce, right? Something that they're doing, or anything that's going on. The thing is, I like that too, N30 speed limit, but it doesn't tell you what the speed limit is, so I can just go 100 now. But the thing is that, okay, somebody lacks the ability socially to reinforce or overcompensate, etc., right? But is it that they lack the ability, or they lack the need? Like, they don't need social contrivance, ego gratification, overcompensation, bypass attraction, undue emphasis. They don't need that. That looks like a chest from like a fucking video game or something. Like, we gotta open that shit and do a Zelda, and like it's in such a spot that's like, I don't know, it just stood out so much. But no, what I'm saying is the fact that like freedom is outlawed. Like, let's say, oh, I can just get out of my car right now and go swim in that water or go do something, and it's like at my own peril. I don't care if, I'll sign a waiver. I don't want anything in return. But, like, you're just not free to do anything ever, anywhere. So it's like they're like invisible walls in real life. That's what they are. All these fences, all these signs, all these rules, like, you take for granted. And again, there might be a general pretense of a positive intention with that, but it doesn't matter, because maybe you weren't going to do anything negative, right? The majority of things would be harmless. Like, okay, you go out in the woods and you go do whatever you want. Like, you're not really hurting anyone by doing that. And even by the same process, like, oh, you might litter or you might do something minorly harmful. So on the basis of your minor harm potential, your life is inhibited and controlled, and you're presumed guilty until proven innocent, just because of the potential of you to do something bad. But that same premise isn't extended to people in positions of power and authority, that they are given more power than you and resources than what you have, but they're not held accountable, but you are. So it's kind of a reversal. The ordinary person is somehow a threat, even though they're just a random dude with no resources, no nothing, right? Just minding their own business. Oh, they'll litter one little thing or something, versus, oh, the corporation ravaging the environment. So it's not really about a standard, it's about a pretense, so that they can have monopoly over it and then do what they will. Do the same thing to an extreme degree, right? So again, the do as I say, not as I do, kind of the conquerors, in particular, that if you did it, then you might be a threat to their power, because that's all it's based on, is force. Like, that would seem to validate anything. And it's kind of how people go along with it. So you have the mass production suffers equality thing, the toleration thing, and the social contrivance thing. These are three topics I want to discuss. So the social contrivance, like, where you could say, this person lacks the ability socially to engage or reinforce or overcompensate, right, for the process. Maybe they don't need that. Like, they're aware of the nature of the process. Everything's zero-sum to the point. They're already aware in their mind and free in their mind, so they don't need anything else, right? That could be number one. So it's not that, oh, they lack the ability. It's that they don't need it the way that you need it. So you need social contrivance, reinforcement, gratification. They don't. So, oh, this is a nice view over the hill here. right? So you don't need, and this is the thing, like, that's what society will do. You might think, oh, you have your relative comforts and technology, bread and circuses and stuff. You can have that, but it's forced on other people, or again, nature itself is monopolized. And so it's kind of like, you can do that if you want, but you can't force it on other people or assume that that's what they want, but that's what ends up happening. And so it's a situation where but again, so social contrivance, do they lack the ability to do it, or do they not have the need to do it that you have, right? So you need constant social reinforcement and gratification, overcompensation. You need that to rationalize your flawed, imperfect, inconsistent, self-invaliding, cognitive dissonance-inducing contrivance state. But they don't need that. They're aware of the nature of the process, or, they're at peace with it, or else they have a different measure of value. So one of you needs something outwardly, the other one doesn't, but then you'll say, oh, they lack the ability to do it. So being at peace, neutral is negative. And then wait, it just said Syracuse straight, now it's saying Syracuse left. Make up your mind. Okay, so here's my other thing. Is the fact that, so again, do they lack the ability socially, or again, they're aware of everything, their mind is more advanced, so they have to struggle with the fact of dumbing it down. Like, oh, they lack the ability to dumb down their infinite objective mind, their self-awareness, the nuance, larger, long-form, like what I'm doing now, long-form postulate. Oh, you got to dumb it down, so they struggle to dumb it down to their level. It's like, oh, they lack the ability to socially contrive. Is it that, or is it that they have struggled to dumb it down to the level of the mass collective people, which isn't really credible and is very contrived, and so it serves a purpose to reinforce whatever the state currently is throughout all of human history. You can see the same thing. That's what social norms are. So it's, again, do they lack the ability, or they don't need it? And do they? Is it a sign like, oh, they're stupid, like being like not social? Or is it that they are self-aware and they have a basis in their mind versus a basis socially, which is, again, a reduction and sort of that's just not as credible of a basis. So like, oh, they lack the ability, but to do what? To dumb down the infinite objective mind, self-awareness, long form, nuance to a lowest common denominator, assuming that's a desirable thing to do. So kind of similar to the way that children are raised, like, oh, but if they it's sort of ex post facto justification. It's okay this is the premise, it's okay to indoctrinate someone before they can think for themselves, and in any other context, you would say, oh, that's brainwashing. Like, suppose somebody does that. They take children and they, put them in a school, in a cult or whatever, and then it's like, before they can even think for themselves, they're teaching them things and telling them how to behave. That would be cultish kind of behavior, and you'd be questioning that, like, well, at least wait till they're old enough to think for themselves, right? With religion or something. But we don't do that with society, and the problem with that is the trappings of society might seem good in some ways, but they include the specific contrivance state that you're in, that you're reinforcing, which includes a machination process, overextended to corporate overlords, etc., etc. Like, you don't understand that nuance of it, right? Children during the end of the Roman Empire would have been taught to obey the Roman Empire, and that led to its fall, like, in part. Like, it's the same. You're always reinforcing a specific thing in the name of some overall pretense. Even like religion, it'll use like lofty things, like, okay, it has some morality and stuff like that, but each one will use it for its own end. So, oh, don't you want to follow this code of commandments and rules? Sure, but does that mean you have to be Christian, or does that mean you have to be a Hindu, or like, which one? And so that's the issue, is like, a standard is used selectively to prop up or apply to one specific thing, whether it be a religion, whether it be a country. And so that's how you can see throughout human history what I call the stigma effect, of how, like, it could be used for anything then. Okay, World War II Germany would have used that as a pretense of like, oh, we're doing this for the collective, we're doing this for the greater good to make a greater Germany, even if it ended up justifying being used to do very bad things, like China right now. Oh, we're doing this for the common good of everybody, and we're doing this for something else. Like, right, so that pretense will seem credible, like a good standard. Okay, so the two other concepts here at work are the tolerance of contrivance and the origin and nature of contrivance with the mass production element that I was talking about. And so the first element there is the fact that that sign almost made it look from a distance like, instead of little geese or ducks or whatever behind it, almost looked like it was a sign warning you that they're going to crap on your window or something, like those little pellets of poop coming out the back, because it shows them so tiny. This is the kind of content you come for. But no, it's a situation where the tolerance aspect comes into play. And the reason why it comes into play is because of the simple fact that or like, here's one point with the minimalist thing. You could have all the money in the world. Pretend you're the richest person ever. You could buy any land and do whatever you want. But it shouldn't rely on that, right? Like, you could do that and you have to earn it through the contrivance state and whatever. But it's not even really about that. It'll be seen like, oh, you just lack the ability to do this or something. It's like, you could do it. You could spend years working through the system and then earn something and then use that. It's not about that, though, right? Like, there's a certain inherent principle that's more like, you shouldn't have to do that. You're born into this world and you're free in nature, so you just want to, you don't want anything, but you just want to be free. It shouldn't be reliant on that. If you had all the money in the world, you shouldn't need it to be free. Or, right, like, if you have nothing, it shouldn't matter, like, for anybody. Right, no man has a monopoly over nature, so it's like, a lot of the time with stuff like that, you're not even harming anybody. It's like, okay, let's say I pulled over my car right now and slept on the grass right there. Eventually somebody would bother me, oh, I'm trespassing, I'm doing this or that. It's like, you're not bothering anybody in any way, right? You're not hurting anybody. But for the potential that you might, or other people do, or whatever, it would be a situation where, just, you're being controlled either way. So serves really no purpose. So it takes a step further. Like, pretend, oh, would you let anybody live in your house or in your lawn or something? No, I as a minimalist, you wouldn't even have a house. You wouldn't even have a lawn because you say you lack the ability to do it. No, it's like, you reject that basis, just like the ego basis. You won't socially contrive because you don't want that to be used as a prop to reinforce something. Or you don't, so the same thing. You don't own anything because you don't want that to be the basis of how the world works, right? But it's kind of forced on you and stuff like that. So we have the tolerance and the mass production as the two other topics I want here. Speaking of an empirical basis, it's the same way, like with like a very quaint area that we have here. So like what happens is what a great view. So what happens is this. Okay. Speaking of the empirical basis, it's like I kind of forgot. Let me address those 2 points. Number one is the fact that tolerance. So, like, your inability to tolerate this contrivance state, or somebody else is gratified for their ability to tolerate it. But that would reinforce anything that, okay, you tolerate something worse, then you feel more gratified. So you're never holding it accountable that that's actually a sound process, whether it should be that way. So you can't have standards because it turns into an ego gratification contest, even though it doesn't make sense because it's just zero-sum self-interest anyway, in excess of what you really need inherently. Everything kind of a luxury and excess, treated as a false absolute default. So it shouldn't be used in service of the specific contrivance state. Because you'd say, oh, I can tolerate more than you, or oh, look at all this I can put up with, but maybe you shouldn't have to put up with it, or maybe it's a flawed process. So instead of being proud of it and gratified by it, why not be free of it? And then the other thing was the fact of, don't use your tolerance basically in service of contrivance. And then the other one was everything mass-produced suffers inequality for it. Alright, let me do those two things here. But no, it's like, let me address a few things first before I do that. If you think like fully or deeply about anything or everything, then it seemed like, oh, you lack the ability to do it or something like that, right? Not that you would be more credible, but like the unthinking mass is somehow credible because they're so sure of what they're doing, versus be uncertain and realize the stigma effect, every error is limit, stuff like that. And then the second thing is kind of like the misframing of meaning and stuff, like everything that, even like what I'm doing now or in general, people will individually preconceive the meaning of it. They won't hear what you're actually saying. They'll preconceive something else, like what they're familiar with or what they associate with, right? They're kind of insisting upon their own ignorance. And then the like even empirical structural do the same thing. They'll assume what you're saying or project it and then use that to control or shut it down. That might not have anything to do with it, but right, it'll be projected or assumed. That's why like the framing is already established. So if you were to, what is this? So that's what I was saying is like they'll try to they'll try to that's one thing I've never done much of, is like stuff to do with the water, like boating and stuff, because I don't know how to swim, so maybe, oh, that's why, like, I could say it a few different ways. Well, why do I need to swim? I'm not a fish. I don't live in the water. I could just use a boat. But on the flip side, it's like, well, you should probably know it as a back, yeah, dead end, but this is the best view. What are you talking about? Actually, not that great of a view, but here, I'll just go around. But what I was saying before is the fact that well, like a few things. The fact that, like, the appearance of an absolutist, whether it be bland or kind of boring or drab, will be seen as negative. Could be the minimalistic effect, right? Or it would be kind of sure of itself, or a measure. So either way, that the presence or the appearance of an absolutist would draw a reaction from the half-mass, because it reflects back their own potential that they shun and condemn and are taught to limit. But it also, why does it have to say four-way? Wouldn't it just be all-way? Like, makes me think there's one that's not. But what I'm saying is, it would evoke a reaction that it would evoke, wait, what is going on? This is, I don't know where it's taking me. It would evoke a reaction, and the reason why is because people are aimless and mindless themselves, and they don't really know what they want, so they're easy to react. So you could just be on the street and you use a pickup line and, oh, that's how I met your mother kind of effect. Or, you know, everything treats itself as an absolute, everyone, everywhere, every place, every society, everything, right? Not facing the cognitive dissonance of that. Not that it's flawed or bad specific to something else, but that it's not absolute, exclusionary to everything else. And it could always be held accountable by the same standard that it poses, instead of, so you would never be at peace with it. You'd never be at peace with the contrivance state or something like that. And then the next thing that happens is where the assuming of intent happens a lot, or like what I was saying before, well, let's talk about this empirical basis too. I'm having trouble. It'll be the misframing and the assuming of intent, but it's like you will be subject to a contrivance state, specific authority, corporation, government, etc., right? Power structure. The problem is that then it'll be held accountable to you. It's not that you're deferring to it for some functional basis that you can either do on your own or remove the need for, or do so well that it invalidates it, do it better. It's that even acquiescing, considering those resources, it's that you would that's like a bit of a sick idea, but it would be done in a positive way. Like, let's do a thing where we do, like, we'll leave gifts on the best looking grave or on a certain random grave or something of somebody we don't even know. It's rooted in a positive thing though, but like, oh, that'll be like a social media thing. Like, I obviously don't do stuff like that in person. I'm not gonna get out of the car even, but whatever, it'd be something like that. It's a positive thing, but and how would they even know? It's not like they have ownership over that. So some random person puts that. Maybe I knew that person too. Maybe you didn't know I knew. Then we'll end up making like a fucking, we'll make like a whole like drama out of it. Oh, somebody left flowers, and oh, it could be some secret lover. Now they think it's from them, and it caused them to break up with somebody because they thought they were having an affair. Like, but no, it's like you defer to unqualified empirical authority for some functional basis, but then it comes down to, oh, your lack of ability to acquiesce to it, right? Or your ability at it is measured, not whether it's worth it in the first place or conditional. So it's kind of like your inability to acquiesce to this specific contrivance state, this government, this authority, this right, your inability to acquiesce versus the fact that it's not absolute, right? Like, so I'm trying to think how to explain it. It's right, it's like, oh, it's your inability to acquiesce to that, not that it's not absolute, and you're even deferring to it. Maybe it's unsound, unqualified empirical authority, zero-sum process. So you can tolerate it, you can defer to it, but maybe it's not validated or justified in the first place. Or maybe, right, it just is, but it's like, okay, conditional, but you're not insisting upon it, so it's not absolute, it's conditional, right? And specific. So it would be framed as a false negative, but it's not like anti, but it's just like, okay, it's one arbitrary human structure versus another, and they've all been flawed throughout human history, had their own mistakes or whatever. So you wouldn't treat it as absolute, is the point. And then the other thing is the fact that kind of like the misframing, right, or assuming of intent. Like, so no matter what I say or no matter what I do or no matter what anybody does, it'll be framed, it'll be seen within this already preconceived thing, this preconceived basis of I was trying to find somewhere by the water there, like to park and actually show you a good view, but I guess somehow we got turned around. But the point is that you would have this misframing of like, it doesn't matter what the truth is or what you're even saying or what your nuance, and it could be an individual basis. It's not saying yours is better than theirs or anything like that. It doesn't matter what idea or what discussion I'm having right now or anybody ever is doing. The false duality framing of contrivance is self-insistent. So it'll, not only will it try to be self-fulfilling, not only will it be self-fulfilling, but it'll, or like self-insistent, but it'll see only things in that term. So it's like, it's again, inability to do the false absolute, not that's not absolute, or like projecting it. So it's like, oh, I'm trying to think of exactly how to explain it. Everything must be about the same thing. So like, there's like the I have a boyfriend effect. is maybe an example of that. An asexual person is walking around and then they interact with you for some specific reason, but you'll project like, oh, they must be hitting on you or something. It's like, it doesn't even apply to them, but it doesn't matter. The truth and reality don't matter. It's only your false duality framing, because you're controlled by that. You're so controlled and obsessed with sex and in that way, and it's so, your life is based around it, and you're restricted in that way, inhibited, repression leads to obsession, that what happens? What happens is you base your whole life around it, you're insecure, you're possessive, so now you see it where it doesn't even exist, because that's the way that your life is based. So like, you're not seeing the reality around you, you're seeing something else. You're seeing what you need to see to reinforce the state that you're already controlled in. So your perspective is impure, and this is often how you are in contrivance states. So it's not your fault that you're indoctrinated that way, but it is your fault if you insist upon it so indignantly, and you, decide to do that. So one thing is that, let me address these last 2 points here. The tolerance issue, which would mean like, your ability or gratification to tolerate a contrivance state. I already kind of discussed it before, but so you would take maybe some gratification in doing that, but then you would be gratified by any state then, or the more subversive and unsound and flawed it is, you would take even more pride and gratification in that, so you'd reinforce it no matter what. Right, you never have a standard. So, right, no matter what state you're in, you would always use that, like bread and circuses basically to validate. But, so like your ability to tolerate or overcompensate for a flawed process might be credible indeed, might be impressive indeed, but right, that doesn't validate the flawed process, right? Otherwise you would never criticize anything. So it's like, it's that you're able to tolerate it more than somebody else is, so that you feel gratified. But maybe it's unsound, and that's the absolutist principle. You would remove the need. All conflict is self-created, right? Even inherent in nature. Like, you keep popping out kids, you keep preserving a state that you don't vouch for, that you're struggling with. We're starting to put food on the table for 5 kids, but you choose to have them. You can't control yourself. You horny, hedonistic animal. Like, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. Everything is self-created. Everything is a net negative, because you could just minimize. That's what minimalism is about. It's not that, everything has to be perfect, but you don't have to actively create the source of conflict either. So don't do something until you vouch for it, until you're at peace with it, until it's a sound process by your standard even. And then here's another idea, like the non or the neutral, like they're a threat to contrivance, because contrivance relies on artifice and bypass critical thinking and emotion, the ego and stuff like that. So if it doesn't apply, then that's somehow negative, or it's projected into the ego basis still. Like, look, this person must be arrogant or narcissistic. Not that they don't apply to the ego basis, therefore amalgam theory, but it has to be projected in false duality that it is the ego basis, because that's how people are controlled. So it must be that, you must have this ego permission, whatever, to behave that way, not that you can be free inherent and you don't need the permission in the first place. And then the final point is that or like, let me do one thing, like the way I said that quote from one of my short stories too, like that, like, you would exploit back contrivance the way it exploits you, or you would, go from town to town, like a nomad, and you could exploit the kindness of others and whatever, even corporations and stuff like that, because they've already taken monopoly over everything. So yeah, why shouldn't you do that? It's like the false privilege or entitlement. Like, what about the privilege of empires? What about the privilege of corporations? What about anything else? It's like, Pizza Hut's never had buffets anymore. I've almost had a craving to try one of those lately, but none of them have it, I feel like. Or maybe I just don't notice. I haven't had it even in a long time period, Pizza Hut, but the thing is here that somebody who's sure of themselves or their measure, or even sure of their own uncertainty, non-insistent, non-ego, non-gratification, non-indignant insistence, like somebody who's like that, they don't need anything from social contrivance externality, because it's either they understand the nature of the process, or it's kind of needless or redundant or whatever, and then so then they can't be controlled by it. So that's all it is. Like, oh, it's negative. Like, oh, you're socially rude or whatever, but you're just not able to be controlled by it in that way. And so, okay, last point here. I'm a little tired. The last point is the fact that the way that society is organized and everything is valued and set up is not done for maximum quality. It's done for mass production, mass scale. Even life itself is treated that way, right? People don't value life. Everything mass produced suffers inequality for it, even life itself. So when there's so many people, the stimuli has been preserved in excess. That has been showing that people don't really value human life. They just don't care. They're hedonistic animals, or they use it even as a prop. They get benefits, whatever. They're looking for purpose, so they try to overcompensate for the contrivance state by then preserving the contrivance state through the stimuli acme. And then one of the other things is the fact that it's kind of like the fact that it's not the highest standard, right? So what would be considered normal is set in motion by established authorities and structure and social engineering. So it's not an absolute, or it's not even necessarily naturally occurring. But even more than that, it's a situation where it's not naturally occurring. It's created by society and social engineering and certain power structure even. So number one, it's not naturally occurring. So it could be anything. It's curated, right? It's just based on a mass number of people. So that's like, oh, that's what's normal. But they've all just been exposed to the same influence. So it doesn't really validate anything. It's not like they carefully sat down and thought about it. You could assume and presume that the people doing the social engineering did think about it, but that doesn't mean with the right intentions, or that it's absolute or perfect, or that you would vouch for it yourself. And then the other point is the fact that the other point is the fact that or like just the concept that awareness and self-awareness and observation itself is negative. Like if you're self-aware, that's negative. Or if you make other people aware of themselves, that's negative. They live in a state of this half-awareness where everything's initial and performative on the superficial basis, appearance, pretense, what's presented to them. So they care about the presentation, initial basis, versus the larger process and, the full awareness. You might think, oh, that's worth it or necessary for a functional basis, but what is the priority there? Then okay, you do that for a functional basis, but what if your priority is no, I'd rather sacrifice that overextended functional basis, zero-sum means, overcompensation, machination process, bread and circuses, for the ability to be fully aware and value the mind over the physical state. But like humanity defined by thought, as I explained, But the other thing is the fact that it's the fact that basically the definition of normalcy, or what is the mass standard of society, right, the commonality, is, again, it's not naturally occurring. It's not based on people actually sitting down and thinking rationally and deciding for themselves or using a standard of value. It's based on social engineering, can be easily manipulated, has all kind of ulterior motives and incentives, has just human imperfection and flaw. It has this projection assuming intent of other people that they may or may not share the same priority. So that when you insist upon the end result of that, you say, oh, but this is normal, this is how everybody does or how they are. But it's set in motion by that social engineering in reaction to the same indoctrination that everybody experienced. So it doesn't really validate it. It just means, okay, we've been all exposed to the same thing, and now we take gratification in the fact that we're all similar that way. And then one of the other points is the fact that again, it's not naturally occurring, and second of all, it's also not based in a standard even in practice. Like, you could say, well, the intention might be good behind it, but actually it's not. The intention is explicitly to, never mind the other incentives, ulterior motives, and things that change from era to era and time periods in human history. Even on a practical sense, it's done for mass production scale, which is subversive in nature, which means, education system, schooling. Oh, it's not done to be the highest quality of education. It's done to be that which can be done to the mass number of people. The food you eat, a lot of it, food production, fast food, it's not done to be the highest quality. It's done to be that which is, again, mass produced. So it's not even designed to be done. So like your normal life and everything you go through, it's not designed to make you, the most successful or the most anything. It's just done to create kind of a curated, easily controlled state, number one, that kind of curates the outcome. And so it's designed to make you mediocre, to be a lowest common denominator, to be half-mass human function. And then the other thing is like taking gratification and pride in your form, like, your limited physical body and where you were born and all these kind of limited things. Taking pride in that might seem good, but it actually limits you, because it's like you could be free in your mind, you can think and do anything theoretically, but you're limited to those things, and you're taught to kind of place special value and gratification on them. Oh my God. Let me see how my battery's doing. That was a good discussion, but I was like really tired, so it was hard for me to keep up with even what I was trying to say. But no, that's my one key expression. Everything mass-produced suffers inequality for it. Let's see. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's like a 50%. Let's see, how much more of this do I want to do, though? take like a day off of using it and just dedicate to charging it. It's like this idling in the car thing is actually a lot worse supposedly than what I give it credit for. Or like part of this does allow you to charge other things, so I'm not sure if I should mess with that or not. Like my other phone is at 3. Oh, it held on pretty good. It's still at 3%. But yeah, let me think. Let me take a little break, but I'll still keep going. But yeah, idling in your car is supposedly a bad thing, especially this much. So we'll let that battery charge up a little more, and then we'll let the other batteries I'm kind of thinking about, but I shouldn't do it at the same time that I'm using like the Starlink, I guess. Right. Those batteries need to be charged for a long period of time. That I could do in a way that's similar to my phone, I guess. Okay, let me see. Sometimes when you look up stuff on Google Maps, it'll show you like some random place that's like nowhere near you. Or like now it's showing me the military base. We could do it. Like, let me try to order delivery from I'm dead, dude. I'm dead. I'm gonna order delivery from Panda Express in the military base because I don't want to bother trying to go in there, which theoretically they shouldn't stop you from. You could have a lot of reasons for going in there. Right, but like even just if I say, okay, it's citizens' rights, it's investigative journalism or something, within all reason, they shouldn't really be able to stop that, or they'll say, okay, you have to come at a certain time. But the joke's on you. I'm just doing it so I can get Panda Express. See, like that's the concept of like scarcity creates value. That there's nothing inherently that special about it. I'm not even that big a fan of it, but just because you can't find it anywhere, therefore it makes it more valuable. So that's kind of a trick of something similar to like the preconceived basis, the fact that you've experienced something, whatever, that you're familiar with something makes it more valuable, so it's interchangeable. You didn't even choose that influence, so if you hadn't been influenced that way, you wouldn't value it. If you influenced a different way, you would value that. It's kind of arbitrary, interchangeable, not a standard, not accountable, not basis. But you take pride in ego gratification. That's what emotion even is. It just bypasses your critical thinking, so you can insist upon anything by that basis. And one of the other things is the fact that well, my phone's gonna die. Like, think about like that full throttle, even long form posture kind of mindset. If you do that, what happens is if you do that, what happens is it's somehow a negative thing. Like, you're full. I'll use an example. Like, an absolutist exerts themselves in mind and body every second of every day in a measure. And it'll be like, oh, but look, this person is they're dumb, or they lack ability, or they look disheveled, they look tired, they look exhausted. So it'll be negative appearances. Meanwhile, they're getting the most out of their being and themselves, and they have measure, and it's not just zero sum, non-based self-interest, or whatever it is they're doing to the fullest. So that's somehow negative to a mass collective of herd of trained animals that take ego gratification by the same measure in a half-mass state. So it's like, you're doing the same thing, whatever you decide for yourself, what you value, what you want to do. Gateway to the Thousand Islands. But what it means is that you, right, like it's somehow a bad thing to get that full value out of something, or it's a good thing to be a half-mass by the same measure, or kind of something similar. Right, so what would be bad with doing that is projected like inability to false absolute, not that's not absolute, or something along those lines. And so it's like, what'll happen is you like defer to a contrivance state, but you don't really take it seriously, right? By doing something in an absolute form, it's somehow negative. And it's a situation where I'm trying to think about this like unstoppable loop battery type thing, where you would get to, have one feeding into the other. There is some pass-through thing like that, where like it would be charging itself and it would run forever. There's actually a real thing I've seen like that, but I don't know. Or like even what I'm doing right now is sort of pass-through charging. So it's like I'm charging the battery while I'm using the battery to power the Starlink. So it would last forever, because as long as my car is running, you can't really do that while the car is off, or it will drain your battery of your car. But what happens is that it's not only not losing battery, it's actually gaining battery, even though it's obviously slower than it would be otherwise, because it's also using it. But so it would last forever by that basis of like so yeah, like this is the one fallacy of like privilege or something. Like, oh, you're required to do certain things by contrivance, and the way in which you do them is restricted, and you have to go through some go-betweens. But somehow, then it's like the privilege that you get that, not that you're acquiescing to it. I could try doing it like this, just with like the art, but if I don't want to show the camera, like, you know, just do the art in such a way that like I have to stretch it out. It's a little bit weird. There's some black space, but I was kind of struggling to do that. It won't properly orient on its own. I could do this, or I'm trying to think like what other things I could do, like what other piece of art I could use related to my debate format. I guess the other one I had was the Yu-Gi-Oh, the long form posture related ones, in particular the one to do with panic. Let me try to chart. This is getting a little crazy because I never knew that actually until recently, that idling in your car is supposedly so bad that, like, but if I have to charge something, then I kind of have to idle, because if you don't, if it's not on and you're just sitting in your car, then you'll drain the car's battery. So like, there's nothing I can really do. This parking lot seems like such a waste. Look how much empty space there is that isn't parking. Like, look at this for a second. This is a good observation base. All this is not parking. Oh, you can't see. Never mind. You can't see anything. It's like a shrunk down lot compared to there's just a lot of empty space. I don't get it. Alright, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to... Okay, we got to charge a couple different things. Everything is just dead on battery, and I'm having trouble with this because, you know, it's just a lot. So let me try this dude here. I'll try to charge my phone and my computer at once. Alright, won't be able to do that. So I have this like little thing that goes in your cigarette lighter thing that allows you to use it as a plug outlet. It's just pretty handy. 2 hours, 16 minutes till full charge. So what? I'm either gonna have to drive around for 2 hours, or I'm gonna have to like sit here and idle for 2 hours. Like, come on. So I'm curious about that. If I look this up, just based on this image alone, would that show up? You'll just see a random fish on the side with no context. Like the fact that he's saying water is better, no, land is better, like the human saying land is better. So let me look up the Objective podcast. I guess it doesn't show up quite the way I thought. Or like, why doesn't it show up? Hang on. It should, because I thought that was on my thing. On my DeviantArt. Let me see. I kind of gave up doing channel art. A lot of them are really terrible, but they're just kind of fun ideas. That Hearthstone one is really good, but how could the Objective podcast not be on here? It is. Yeah, why doesn't that show up? What the hell? The Objective, because that's like not like the name of any of my videos or what I do on stream. It's just the one on the whatever. So I could either do that, or I mean, I can obviously just do the camera. I'm just kind of testing around with this. If I was to, I guess I could do this, like just show that interaction, like still more logical than a typical debate. Right, like water is the best. No, land is way better. Right, like average political debate is kind of like you're dug in on one side, so it doesn't matter what the truth or the reality actually is. So yeah, that's not really such a great piece of art, but it's just gets the point across, kind of. I'm going to try to do this, like where I'm charging stuff and working, but I'm still going to talk. Right, let me see how this works. Yeah, I don't know how to avoid this idling issue. There's really nothing I can do. Right, like I can't be driving all the time, but I'm not always going to have a place to charge stuff. So. Regardless, even of whether I'm streaming or not, doesn't even matter, because like if I wasn't using the Starlink, I would still have to do this, because if I'm charging anything, okay, let's see how this will work. Okay, do this. And so one of the things also that I wanted to do is to this thing can get kind of noisy too, so I wonder if you'll be able to hear it. What did I want to do? Okay, there's a few things I want to do, but I want to kind of try this. Like, I'm going to try to discuss stuff while I'm doing it, maybe. Edit a couple things. Let me see. Maybe this isn't the best way of doing it. I'm trying to think.